Hi.
I'm Hazel, and if you're watching this, it's probably because something dark, messy, and heartbreakingly unbelievable happened in my life. I still can't believe it myself. Even now, years later, my hands shake when I think about that night, our first wedding anniversary dinner. I want to take you back to how everything started because that's what makes it so much harder to believe. It's a story about love, trust, betrayal, and how life can change in a heartbeat. When I first met Ryan, my husband, it felt like something out of a movie. We were both in our mid-20s, full of dreams and excitement, and absolutely head over heels in love. Ryan wasn't the typical guy you'd expect to fall for immediately, but there was something about him. That smile, that laugh, and the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. We met at a local coffee shop in Austin, Texas, where I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life after college, and he was working as a graphic designer, sketching ideas on napkins between orders. I remember the first time we talked. He accidentally knocked over my coffee and, without missing a beat, apologized, helped me clean it up, and asked if I wanted another one on him. It was corny, but charming. Within days, we were inseparable. He was goofy, protective, and surprisingly attentive. He'd leave little notes on my windshield or text me funny memes at 3 a.m. I was smitten. After 2 years of dating, he proposed at the park where we used to go for walks every Sunday. He got down on one knee, surrounded by fairy lights, and asked me to be his forever. Of course, I said yes. We planned our wedding meticulously, a small ceremony with close friends and family, a rustic venue, homemade flowers, and Ryan even designed our wedding invitations himself. We wanted it simple, heartfelt, and ours. Our first year of marriage was perfect. I won't sugarcoat it. It was far from flawless. We argued over bills, shared responsibilities, and occasionally locked horns about where to spend our weekends, but at the core of it all was love. We celebrated each day, laughed through sleepless nights, and built memories from scratch. Ryan loved cooking, and I loved trying out his creations, even the ones that barely worked. We'd binge-watch shows together, drink wine on the patio, and plan vacations we couldn't quite afford but dreamed about endlessly. By the time our first anniversary came around, I thought we had it all. We rented a cabin outside of town and invited our closest friends and family for a cozy dinner. I worked tirelessly to make everything perfect: homemade pasta, Ryan's favorite cheesecake, floral arrangements, candles everywhere. I even found a playlist of songs that chronicled our relationship, from awkward coffee dates to spontaneous road trips. That night, I wore my favorite navy blue dress, curled my hair, and smiled ear to ear. Ryan looked dashing in his white shirt and suspenders, and I remember holding his hand under the table whispering, "Can you believe it's been a year?" He grinned. "It feels like yesterday we met." I thought everything was beautiful, magical, even. Little did I know that within hours, everything would shatter. Looking back, I can pinpoint a few signs that something wasn't right. The way he avoided my eyes, the restless tapping of his fingers, the awkward pauses when I asked about work. But in love, we sometimes choose to ignore the red flags, clinging to the version of reality we want to believe in. That dinner, it started like any celebration, filled with laughter and toasts. But as the night deepened and the candles flickered, Ryan stood up, glass in hand, with that unmistakable tension in his jaw. I smiled, thinking he'd give a heartfelt speech. I couldn't have prepared myself for what came next. "I have something to say," he began, and the room fell silent. I squeezed his hand under the table, smiling encouragingly. "I'm leaving you," he said plainly, looking at me as if he were delivering the weather forecast. "I've already started a new life." I froze. The air vanished from the room. I could hear the soft clinking of cutlery as jaws dropped. My eyes locked on his face, searching for a joke, a smile, a hint that he was kidding. But he was dead serious. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, frozen, as he sat back down like nothing had happened. People whispered. My mother covered her mouth. My friends stared wide-eyed, and I felt hollow. That was the moment my world split in two, before and after. But this isn't a story about how it ended. It's a story about how it began unraveling, how I gathered strength from the ashes, and how revenge isn't always about anger, but sometimes about reclaiming your power. So let me rewind and take you through the journey. From the first time we met, the love that seemed unbreakable, the cracks that formed silently, and the devastating night that changed everything. After that night, after Ryan stood in front of our family and announced he'd already started a new life, everything became a blur. People tried to comfort me, but their words felt hollow. I barely slept for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the way his lips barely quivered, how his eyes didn't waver, how calm he looked delivering the final blow to our life together. The next morning, I woke up alone in the cabin. The sheets were rumpled, and his cologne lingered faintly in the air, as if mocking me. I sat at the edge of the bed, frozen, staring at my hands. My phone buzzed repeatedly with missed calls, texts, sympathy messages. I didn't answer any of them. I spent that entire day in silence, staring at the walls. But something inside me wasn't ready to believe it. Maybe it was denial. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe I needed answers. I couldn't let it go. I had to know how long this had been going on. Had it been months? Weeks? Was I just a chapter in his past? Or was I being erased while still alive? That night, back at our house, now eerily quiet, I started going through the things I had once trusted blindly. His drawers, his phone, his email. At first, it felt invasive, almost wrong, but my gut screamed, "You deserve to know." I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water, my hands trembling as I unlocked his phone. His passcode was the same one he always used his birthday. My heart thudded in my ears. I opened his messages. The screen lit up with threads I never knew existed. Names I barely recognized. Some labeled Mark, Jenny, and Elle. There were screenshots, emojis, half-sent messages. One message stood out. "Can't wait for tonight. Last time was amazing. No more hiding, it's time." I swallowed hard, trying not to let my breath catch. My hands shook. I scrolled further. Pictures. A beach vacation. A candlelit dinner at a fancy restaurant. Their smiles close. Too close. A photo in bed, blankets thrown carelessly, a hand resting suggestively. Each picture was like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. I felt sick, dizzy, nauseous. But it didn't stop there. In his emails, I found hotel reservations. A weekend getaway to Napa Valley under a fake name. A spa booking for couples therapy, but the date corresponded to the weekend he told me he was at work. I sat back, tears welling up, but refusing to fall. It was like watching someone else's life unravel in front of me, a film playing on repeat. The betrayal was undeniable. The lies were suffocating. For hours, I just sat in that chair, scrolling, absorbing, numbly staring at faces that should never have belonged to him. The next day, I confronted him. I didn't want to. I rehearsed what I'd say. I even cried in the mirror, practiced how I would ask without breaking apart. But when he walked in, dressed for work like everything was normal, my resolve broke. "Ryan," I whispered. He paused, his eyes flickering for a fraction of a second. Guilt? Fear? Indifference? I couldn't tell. "I know," I spat, my voice shaking. "I saw everything." his face drained of color. He stammered, then tried to laugh it off. Hazel, it's not what it looks like. Oh, really? I interrupted, slamming the phone on the counter. Hotel reservations? Pictures? Messages? It looks exactly like what it is. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I didn't want to hurt you, he whispered. Too late for that, I snapped. For the next hour, we sat in silence. I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to throw every dish in the kitchen at his face. But my body wouldn't obey. I felt frozen again, like I did the night he announced our end. What hurt even more than the betrayal was the quietness of it. He didn't fight for us. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He simply confessed, as if removing a weight from his shoulders. I've been unhappy, he muttered. I've been standing next to you. I shot back. He avoided my eyes. That's when I realized something chilling. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was a planned exit. He had built a life elsewhere while pretending to share one with me. For days after that confrontation, I avoided answering his calls. I slept on the couch, closed off from everyone. My friends tried to pull me out of it. My mother cried on the phone. But I didn't want their pity. Instead, I dove deeper. I traced dates. I connected dots. I learned that his affair had started nearly 6 months ago. 6 months. That meant that while I was planning this anniversary dinner, he was booking hotels with someone else. While I was shopping for flowers, he was messaging late into the night, making plans without me. I felt hollow, angry, betrayed. But underneath it all, something else stirred, something dark, something fierce. I didn't want to just disappear. I didn't want to crumble into tears. I wanted answers. I wanted him to feel what I felt. But revenge wasn't as simple as confronting him or slapping his face. It had to be something more. Something that made him question every choice he made. Something that tore down the life he thought he could build without me. I still wasn't sure how far I'd go, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let this be the end of me. That was the beginning of something I never expected. The slow, deliberate descent into the world of planning, watching, waiting, and ultimately striking back. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who plots revenge. I grew up believing in forgiveness, in moving forward, in letting go of pain. But what Ryan did, what he thought he could do to me, it twisted something inside me. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was fury. It was humiliation. It was betrayal layered on top of betrayal, and it demanded something more than tears. For days, I walked around in a daze. I barely ate. I barely slept. My skin looked pale. My eyes hollowed out. Friends called, texted, showed up with casseroles and tissues. But I wanted nothing to do with their comfort. Their sympathy only reminded me that my life had been destroyed by someone I loved. I kept the phone with his messages locked away, like a forbidden treasure chest filled with poison. Every time I unlocked it, my heart raced, my jaw tightened. I would read a message, scroll through pictures, close it, and feel my stomach twist with rage. But beneath the pain, another feeling began to surface: clarity. It was as if the betrayal stripped me of all illusions. I could see the situation for what it was: cold and ugly. Ryan didn't deserve the life he had. He didn't deserve to walk around pretending he was a good man. He didn't deserve the comfort of having me around while he built a separate world in the shadows. I started writing things down. Lists. Timelines. Possible consequences. Plan A. Confront him publicly. Make him admit everything in front of family and friends. Plan B. Leak his affair to his employer. Destroy his reputation. Plan C. Expose the affair through social media. Photos, screenshots, receipts. Plan D. Financial sabotage. Cut off access to funds. Drain accounts. Plan E. Emotional warfare. make him feel the isolation and heartbreak I felt. I didn't want impulsive actions. I wanted to dismantle the life he thought he could walk away to. The mask of strength. The hardest part was pretending I was fine. I went to work. I smiled. I answered questions with fake composure. People asked, "Are you okay?" And I'd nod, saying, "Just tired." I mastered the art of the blank stare, of keeping my face expressionless when someone mentioned Ryan's name. Inside, I was anything but okay. At night, I sat alone in the dark, the only light coming from my laptop screen as I researched divorce laws, tracking how far I could go without implicating myself. I watched videos about cybersecurity. I read forums about exposing cheating spouses. I learned about privacy settings, fake accounts, anonymous reporting. It felt like I was preparing for war. And in a way, I was. One night, I stumbled across an old video on my phone from our wedding anniversary last year. Ryan and I, dancing in the living room, laughing. His eyes lit up when he whispered, "Here's to forever." I froze. I pressed pause and stared. How could the same man look at me with so much love then, and so much cruelty now? I cried until I couldn't breathe, sobbing into the pillow as the past replayed like a twisted ghost. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to vanish. But most of all, I wanted justice. I couldn't go through this alone. I reached out to my best friend, Maya, the only person I fully trusted. She sat with me for hours as I recounted everything, the affair, the lies, the coldness. At first, she cried with me. Then, her eyes hardened. "You don't have to take this lying down, Hazel," she said quietly. "You owe it to yourself to fight back." I hesitated. What if it gets messy? She leaned forward. "Let it. It's already messy. The only way you'll heal is by taking control." That's when I knew I couldn't wait anymore. I created a secure folder on the cloud, a place where I uploaded screenshots, emails, hotel bookings, receipts, and photos. Every piece of proof was time-stamped, backed up, and categorized. This wasn't impulsive revenge anymore. It was deliberate. I learned that Ryan and his other lover, Jenna, weren't as careful as they thought. They left traces everywhere: shared calendars, rideshare apps, expense trackers. One night, I downloaded the data from their hotel reservations. I cross-referenced dates and found they'd planned at least 3 trips together, while I believed he was working overtime. It was all there. Organized chaos. I started investigating his social media habits. He thought he was discreet, but like most people who live a double life, he left breadcrumbs everywhere. Photos cropped awkwardly to hide her. Stories that lasted too short to be meaningful. Check-ins tagged incorrectly. I created fake accounts to follow him, joined groups he was part of, learned his routines. His employer was a mid-sized firm that prized family values and integrity. I knew exactly how to tear into that facade. I also found out that Jenna had posted pictures that weren't private, evidence of their time together. With every discovery, my resolve hardened. This wasn't about petty revenge anymore. It was about dismantling his world brick by brick until he felt the weight of every lie. The night before I made my first move, I sat in the living room surrounded by printouts, files, legal documents, and a list of actions I planned to take. My hands shook. I poured myself a glass of wine, but didn't drink it. I whispered to myself, "This is for me. This is for my peace." Then I texted Maya. "Tomorrow I start. I'm scared, but I'm ready." She replied instantly, "I've got you. You're stronger than you think." I went to bed that night, but didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and let the adrenaline course through me. It felt terrifying, but also exhilarating. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the architect of justice. At dawn, I sent the first anonymous email to his boss. It was blunt. "You deserve to know about one of your trusted employees." Attached are screenshots, hotel bookings, and a timeline that reveal a long-term affair compromising his integrity. You might want to investigate further. Within hours, I saw the ripple effect begin. His name was being whispered about in the office. Rumors turned into confrontations. His position was being questioned. And that was only the beginning. By the time I hit send on that first email, I knew I had crossed a line. There was no turning back. I had stepped into a world where the rules of kindness no longer applied, and where I was no longer playing the role of the abandoned wife. I was orchestrating a reckoning, one that would leave Ryan crumbling. I breathed deeply and felt fear curling at the edges of my chest, but it didn't stop me. The fire inside me had been lit, and now it demanded action. The first ripple of destruction started quietly, like a tremor under the surface. That afternoon, Ryan came home earlier than expected. His face looked pale, strained, and restless. Nothing like the smug, casual man I used to see. He paced through the house, tossing his keys on the counter without a glance at me. "I need to talk," he barked. I sat on the couch, calm, composed, as if this were any other conversation. "What about?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. He gritted his teeth. Something at work." I tilted my head, feigning concern. "Is it serious?" He didn't answer. He walked into the bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. I sat still, my heart racing, not from anxiety, but from satisfaction. That night, I checked his phone while he slept. There were dozens of missed calls from his boss. Emails flagged urgent. His calendar was flooded with canceled meetings. His professional reputation was unraveling before my eyes. I turned my attention to Jenna, the other woman. She had always seemed untouchable, the mistress who could smile sweetly while taking everything from another woman's life. But arrogance blinds people. Through the fake accounts I had created, I gained access to her social media. There it was. Photographs, videos, laughter. A picture of them in a hotel lounge, his arm draped around her shoulder. Another of them sharing a dessert at a restaurant. The timestamps matched dates when Ryan claimed to be on a business trip. I downloaded everything. The next morning, I sent a carefully worded anonymous package to Jenna's workplace, a printed portfolio of evidence, complete with dates, locations, and screenshots. The letter inside read, "Some secrets are better left buried, but you chose otherwise. Perhaps this will help you reconsider the consequences." Within hours, the office grapevine exploded. I overheard a neighbor whispering about her reputation being shredded. She quit her job a few days later. The next step was cold and deliberate. I knew Ryan kept joint accounts with me, plus personal investments he thought were safe. I hired a discreet consultant, someone Maya recommended, to trace his accounts and expose vulnerabilities without triggering alarms. We didn't drain everything immediately. Instead, we planned a slow bleed. Over 2 weeks, small sums were transferred to accounts abroad. A few large withdrawals disguised as routine expenses were processed. I ensured that by the time he noticed, the damage was irreversible. One night, I sat at the kitchen table, watching his transaction alerts pinged on his phone. His jaw dropped. He froze. He stared at the screen for several seconds, as if it was a nightmare. "Where's the money?" he shouted. I remained silent. His fists clenched at the counter. He tried calling the bank, but transfers had already been flagged for investigation. The next morning, he stormed out the door without breakfast. The final phase required precision. I compiled every piece of evidence, texts, videos, hotel records, bank transfers, and professional misconduct reports into a sleek presentation. Then, anonymously, I submitted it to a reputable online scandal platform, one known for high-profile exposures. The post went live. It didn't just expose Ryan's affair. It detailed his betrayal, his professional negligence, and the way he manipulated others while maintaining the appearance of a devoted husband and respected colleague. The story went viral. Friends and family reached out. His boss initiated a formal investigation. His social media crumbled under waves of messages. People stopped inviting him to gatherings. His friends distanced themselves, fearing association. 3 weeks after the first email, Ryan finally confronted me. He stormed into the house, eyes bloodshot and filled with despair. His shirt was untucked, his hair unkempt. "I know you're behind this," he screamed. I stayed seated, my face composed, eyes cool and steady. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said softly. He slammed his fist into the wall. "Don't lie to me." "I don't lie, Ryan," I whispered. "But you did." His face crumbled. Tears pooled at the edge of his eyes, but he fought them back. I made a mistake," he stammered. I stood up slowly and walked toward him. "A mistake," I repeated. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is leaving dirty dishes in the sink. What you did, what you built behind my back, that wasn't a mistake." His eyes flinched like a child caught stealing. I leaned in, keeping my voice calm. "You thought you could erase me with one announcement. You thought you could rebuild your life without consequence. But you forgot that the person you're hurting isn't weak." His knees buckled. I'm sorry." I stepped back. "I hope you are. But this isn't about apologies." In the weeks that followed, Ryan became a ghost. His phone barely rang. His office visits were canceled. His friends unfollowed him. Even his family kept their distance. I made sure to never gloat, never broadcast my triumph. Instead, I let silence speak for me. At gatherings, I smiled politely, but kept my distance. People who once sympathized with him whispered about how karma had finally caught up. He spiraled, retreating into shame and bitterness. And I found something deeper than revenge. I found my voice again. Just when I thought it was over, Ryan reached out one last time. A handwritten letter arrived, addressed to me. Inside it read, "You've ruined my life. I'll never forgive you." For a moment, my hands trembled, but I placed it in the fire, watching the edges curl and blacken. I whispered to myself, "This is the end for both of us." Months later, I stood on my own balcony overlooking the city skyline. I poured a glass of wine, the same way I had before planning it all. But this time, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt power. I felt peace. I wasn't defined by what Ryan had done to me. I was defined by how I rose above it. The betrayal that once consumed me had become the fuel that shaped me into someone I never thought I could be, resilient, fierce, and free. And as the city lights sparkled in the distance, I smiled, because I had reclaimed my life. It's been almost a year since everything fell apart. The marriage, the trust, the life I thought I knew. At first, I thought revenge would feel like sweet justice. I thought I'd feel relief, power, and closure. And sure, I felt that, the adrenaline rush, the satisfaction of watching him unravel. But what surprised me the most wasn't the chaos I created, it was what came after. The silence, the stillness, the space to rebuild myself. After the storm, I took the first few weeks to simply breathe. I walked through my homeroom by room, touching objects that held memories, photographs of happier times, letters, gifts. At first, every corner reminded me of what had been lost. But slowly, I began to reclaim the space. I painted the walls a soft gray. I bought plants and filled the windowsills with greenery. I started journaling every night, pouring my frustrations, my anger, my grief onto paper. Writing helped me process what I'd done and why. More importantly, it helped me see that revenge, while tempting, had never been the solution. It was the reaction to feeling powerless. Friends who had distanced themselves out of sympathy came back cautiously. I welcomed them, not to drown in pity, but to rebuild relationships based on honesty and strength. I started therapy, something I had always dismissed as unnecessary. But sitting in that quiet room, I faced truths I had hidden from myself. I realized how deeply Ryan's betrayal had shaken my sense of self. I also found other women in similar situations, women who had been abandoned, cheated on, lied to. We shared stories, tears, and laughter. Together, we discovered how resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. I kept tabs on him, though I pretended not to care. Last I heard, his business failed. He moved out of the city. The affair ended. No social media presence, no job prospects, no friends left to call him. I never wished him dead, but I never wished him well either. Karma has a way of catching up, and sometimes you don't need to lift a finger. Life does the work for you. If I'm being honest, the hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the revenge. The hardest part was forgiving myself. For so long, I thought strength meant being composed, graceful, patient. But strength also means knowing when to stand up for yourself, even if that means breaking rules you once lived by. I had always thought revenge would leave me cold, hollow, but instead, it forced me to confront my fears and rebuild my life on my own terms. If you're watching this, maybe you're where I was, hurt, confused, betrayed. I'm not here to tell you revenge is the only answer. It's messy, it's painful, and it will change you. But I'm here to tell you this. You are stronger than the betrayal. You are more resilient than the pain. Take time to grieve. Take time to fight. Take time to heal. You'll come out the other side, not broken but reborn. And that's where the real power lies.